This podcast is sponsored by Podbean. Podbean is the easiest way to create your own podcast. We use Podbean to host S1E1. Download the free Podbean podcast app to start, record, and publish your very own podcast in minutes. Podbean provides everything you need to run your podcast, and you can record and publish episodes directly from the app on your phone. Download the free Podbean app today. That's Podbean. Head on over to Podbean at www.podbean.com and use the code podcast21 for your first 30 days of podcast hosting for free. Check it out.
Yes. Not to be used in polite or even impolite conversation.
I'm sorry, because if we're using words that are like so highly offensive, because I know we get some listeners overseas, so I apologize if anything we said is like drastically offensive.
Deal with it, you smegheads.
We're ignorant smegheads. I apologize. Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just its first televised episode, and ignoring anything we know about the future run of that show, rate it based on just that pilot episode alone. This week we're going to be talking about Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf has 74 episodes, has gone over 12 series, originally on BBC Two and then moving to a station called Dave since 2009. Today we're going to be talking about episode 1, which was called The End, originally airing February 15th, 1988. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the guys, Gordo, Ferg, Nick, and Joe. What's going on, guys?
Hey, yo.
Hello.
I've covered my body in complete and utter and total nonsense gibberish. That line rings true. We watched the show a lot as a kid, and now we're all covered in the stupidest tattoos, and that line was just so funny to me.
So, to start, usually I start a little different, but I want to get into... It says, I was doing a little pre-homework, and I'm not too familiar with the show. It says that there is a Series 13. Of course, what we call seasons in the U.S. are called series in England. Series 13 called The Promised Land, but there's like one episode that I think got released in April.
It was a special.
It was a special because it looked to be like it was a whole, like a season or a series, but only one episode came out, and I didn't know if there was more to it. So
yeah, it's actually categorized as a TV movie.
Okay. But yeah, originally...
I thought they were doing a whole I thought they were rebooting the entire series.
That's what it looked like when I was looking up stuff, but I'm not familiar enough with the situation, so I was unsure. Thought maybe you guys would know a little more than I did. But yeah, 12 series it's gone, like I said, originally on BBC Two, moved to Dave, a network called Dave, where it's been since 2009. But yeah, Red Dwarf.
Hi, I'm Dave.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't heard our Dave episode, Dave the Show, back in our archives, I would recommend you give that a shot. But
it's all ball skin, Dave. Ball skin. It's
Red
all
Dwarf.
Ball skin, Dave.
Red Dwarf. Who
Red ball skin.
has seen it? Who saw Red Dwarf?
I have.
It's one of those shows I've always meant to start watching and then never did. So this is my first delve into Red Dwarf.
Yeah, this is mine as well, and this was a show that like you guys have brought up a few times in the past when we've gone over episodes to do, and you guys have talked about it quite a bit. I never even knew the show existed until you guys brought it up. I never even heard of it.
This existed for a while. I think it was Tuesday nights, but on the PBS, I think it wasn't even the Massachusetts station. I think it was the New Hampshire station, which we also got. They would do Red Dwarf. They would do Blackadder.
I would catch this by accident, much like the Red Green Show.
I was just going to say Red Green Show,
shit,
which is a definite coming soon for this podcast. And they'd play all those shows that nobody else would play, right? And even the PBS in Boston would never play anything like that. And to be fair, I think that they stopped playing it years ago, too, like any of those type of shows.
I don't think those channels exist anymore.
No, they do. They're public
I think they exist, yeah. I think they just play like Nova now, though.
They do. They
Remember
play
Nova?
like Nova and Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, to get into this first episode, we'll start right at the first screen.
Just to cut you off real quick, though, this is another one, just like Wings. This is one's about a spaceship, and it's not called Pilot for once. Like,
yeah,
that's a good call.
So we see an astronaut painting just the words Red Dwarf on like the exterior of this like big spaceship. And it's like, and he's painting it while it's in space. But yeah, it pans out and we just kind of like, there's this orchestra like scored music playing in the background. And that's like the intro to the show. At first I didn't know. So I thought like this was like a scene, but it looks like this was the intro.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on it? I thought for what I was seeing, I thought the graphics were like impressive for 1988 for that.
Yeah, no, it really is for that time period.
I think a lot of them too, because not to get ahead, but like, when they do some of the hologram stuff, it doesn't look bad considering it's 30 years later.
Yeah, I actually had that
thought
written.
the same thing. I mean, this was definitely like a scale ship that they're passing a camera underneath, but it did look good. I mean, when was Star Wars kind of set the bar? Because when was the first Star Wars released?
I think
76, I think.
Yeah,
that was a movie budget. That's not like...
No, but what I'm saying is the technology for like space stuff has been around for more than 10 years at this point. So it's
A lot of miniatures, matte paintings.
Yeah, like they kind of paved the way for.
It was a little bit of
like
a template to go by.
Right,
Like,
right.
Yeah, so then we start right in with the first scene, and we have two guys walking through what, like, I assume is the interior of the ship, and the man in the back who's pushing a cart is like singing, and he's cut off by the other guy walking ahead of him, and he asks, these guys, Lister and Rimmer, correct? Like, those are their names.
Yep.
So we don't know that at this point, but then he asks, the guy in the front is Rimmer, and he asks Lister if he's ever been hit over the head with a welding mallet, and he responds,
Does anybody
No,
else
I don't
think
think
that Lister looks like Key from Key and Peele?
No, but I think Rima looks like Dennis from.
I'm
Always
sorry,
Sunny.
Peele, not which
I always
Peele.
get confused. I used
Peele.
to say he's
Jordan
Key.
Peele.
His name
Yeah.
is Key because he's tall and skinny.
Peele's
like
the shorter
Key,
one.
But I don't
Yeah,
think that's right
Jordan Peele.
either.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of Jordan Peele.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit.
I can see it, sure. I do like this intro a lot too. This introduction to these two characters really quickly because they're so very British.
It's such a British entry.
The humor is so very British right away, but you also understand right away these two people are stuck together and they hate each other. And anybody who's had a job like that understands it. Also, I really love that Craig Charles, who plays Lister, he's from Liverpool, so he's got that real fun Beatles accent. They're like, help us.
hold on. So Rimmer wants Lister to stop humming, and then then he starts to do like these other things to agitate him, like he's doing like the slap his cheek with his mouth open. Like I don't know if I can. I have facial hair. I don't think I can do it because of that. Can you do it? Yeah, one of those noises. He's doing the as well. He's doing all these like just agitating things to bother him, and he says like if he makes another sound, he's gonna report him. So then after that, Rimmer asks Lister a question, and then he responds by just mouthing words, and he's not making any noises because he was just warned to not make any more sounds. So, but yeah, like as you guys talked about, like there's like an agitation. It's the comedy and the straight man, the classic pairing that they're going with here.
Yeah, classic odd couple, really. One's kind of slobbish and one of them is a, wannabe go-getter that thinks he's
Abbott
higher
and
than he
Costello.
is.
And as they're talking, we find out like they're both technicians on the ship, and Rimmer was going, I think he's a little higher ranking than Lister, but essentially
He's, like,
kind of at
one
the same
tier up,
job.
I
Yeah.
think.
But like he was going to report him to the captain. So he goes to like write a little note on this. Rimmer's like one of those guys who wants to make sure everything's done very properly and specific. He asks Lister to hand him, it was like a 14B, which it just looked like some sort of a small straw. It was to fix like the chicken noodle soup.
Yeah, the
The
chicken
chicken
soup
soup dispenser.
And he's like, no, that's the 14F. And then he grabs the 14B and holds them side by side. And these straws look absolutely identical, but it's just to kind of show you what kind of guy that, Rimmer is.
I like to, but right when it sets up this show, like you can tell there's a degree of them taking the set design and like props and stuff seriously, and then there's the degree of them not caring at all, which I like because they could have used anything, but they literally used straws for these tools.
Yeah.
Like it could have been
Yeah.
anything that looked similar, but they just used straws.
Like they had to set design like these hologram decks and
I was just saying, it just goes to show, like, using something like a straw, how minute and simple it is, but how particular Rimmer is about things like that.
I also feel like a little bit of this show too, to take an English term, is taking the piss out of serious sci-fi shows, and that's kind of part of the fun of it too, is to have things like, we're just playing with straws here. This thing is so absurd and ridiculous that it doesn't need to be taken so seriously.
Yeah, and then Lister says that the only reason that robots don't do his work is because they have better union than them, and he also reminds Rimmer that he actually ranks below all those robots.
Rimmer or Lester?
Lister.
Or they both.
No, not Lester though. It's Lister.
Well, they
Lister. Yes, that's right.
they both rank behind the robots.
They
Yeah.
both do. Okay.
Yeah,
Also,
so-
they have a better union.
But
Yeah.
Lister is like one tier above Rimmer.
No, Rimmer,
sorry, Rimmer
is
is
one
one
tier
tier
is
above
one
Lister.
tier above.
I take
Okay.
it as they're both fuck ups, but one of them doesn't care at all, and one actually tries but always fucks up. So he's just slightly above him, where one's at the bottom of the barrel, like completely. The
Yeah, the way they,
two, like-
where they rank. Well, I mean, and we get into it in a moment too with finding out that Rimmer's taking an exam to advance himself. But yeah, Rimmer's Rimmer's more like, I am better than this. Like, I'm going to climb the ranks. But Lister is very content with where he's at, and he's fine. He's like, this is my job, and I'm going to make my money and get out of here. And they're just two different people in the same position, but with different aspirations.
Yeah, Rimmer has aspirations in that world. Lister is doing this because it's a job.
Yeah. And like I said, Rimmer is looking to take this exam. What was it for again? Do you guys, it was
engineering.
Yeah.
For an engineer to I guess, advance a rank.
I think it's like engineering officer exam.
Yeah. So it's to advance within, what they're doing. But I guess he's failed it, a few times. And Lister reminds him the last time he took it, he basically had a meltdown during the test, and he kept writing "I am a fish" 400 times.
I am a fish 400 times.
Yeah, but
he did a little dance and he fainted.
Right, but Rimmer corrects him. He says that he wrote
the fish.
Rimmer corrects him and says that he wrote a discourse that was too mind-breaking for examiners to accept. That was his remembrance of what happened, not so much that he had a meltdown. And then Rimmer asks Lister if he's smoking a cigarette. Lister replies by saying, "No, it's a chicken." I thought that was funny. It was a stupid joke, but for whatever reason, like, it was like the "no, you idiot," just like, I don't know, something about the simplicity of the joke.
It's good to know sarcasm still exists in the future.
Yeah.
Like the level of humor hasn't changed.
Yeah, and because of that retort, Rimmer is going to write yet another report. And as he's about to start, his name, Todd Hunter is his name. It's like one word. Am I getting that correct? I tried cross-referencing and looking everybody up as I was writing these notes because like I said, I'm unfamiliar with this show.
Honestly, I'm not sure because he's such a minuscule character, and as you know, the event that happens in this thing, they're the only main characters on the show.
Right. Yeah, not to get ahead, but yeah. So I believe Todd Hunter is his name.
Later on in the series, some of the smaller characters they mentioned in this, like Christine Kachansky. Like, the only reason you remember her name is because she is referenced and comes back a bunch in the future because it's like his dream girl. You know what I mean? So,
got it. So yeah, so I believe Todd Hunter's his name, and I apologize to any fans of the show if I'm butchering that, but he's clearly like a rank higher than the two of them, and so as he enters, like, Rimmer stands at attention, and Lister sticks a cigarette in his own ear, which was odd, but you're getting again the vibe of the kind of the yin and yang these two are. They're just polar opposite people.
Now, everybody on here, with the exception of Ferg, if I'm not mistaken, has either smoked or does currently smoke because we're idiots. Would you ever put a cigarette in your ear, or did that bum you out? Because like now we live in a world with earbuds.
It made me kind of want to try.
I just feel like I Q-tip my ears twice a day because I'm an insane person.
Which you shouldn't do, by the way.
What's that?
You're not supposed to stick Q-tips in your ear.
I realize that, but I also stick stupid headphones in my ear all the time, and they're getting gnarly.
That being said, I Q-tip my ears every day.
I feel like
I'm not supposed to, though.
I think it's generational. We just grew up being told to before we learned you weren't supposed to, and then it was too late or whatever.
I'll stop doing it when I stop finding wax up there.
Speak for yourself, man. I because of my ear problems, like, you should see the grody shit that comes out of there. It's like different colors and shit.
Yeah, so you don't want a cigarette in there first before you put it in your mouth?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean,
Yeah,
I'd
that's
rather
what I'm
put it
saying.
in like the rim of my glasses and hope that it doesn't burn my hair. Or my
As a former smoker, I can say I had never stuck a cigarette in my ear. I've never thought about sticking a cigarette in my ear, and I would just be so paranoid it would either like burn something inside of my ear and fuck it up, or fall out and just burn my shoulder.
The only thing that I could think of is if you had what do you call them? Rims in
Plugs.
your ear?
Plugs.
Yeah. So if you had like a hollow plug that
rims.
They're rims.
No, like those 22-inch spinny rims that you put in your ear.
Spinners on my ears, bro.
Bro, if you have plugs, you could definitely get spinners in your ear.
I bet anything that they sell spinner
Oh,
plugs.
they absolutely do.
Oh, I bet 1,000%.
I am positive those exist.
But like if you have one that like kind of goes through, that's just like open air rim, I guess, you could probably stick a cigarette in that with no
Well, of
problem.
course you
and
could,
just-
yeah.
You could, yeah. I will say that anybody I've ever known who's had plugs or rims, they always, at one point in a conversation, will be like, my ears smell so bad. You're like, why are you relaying this information to me that I do not want to know? I will say that not an ear thing. I don't know if anyone's ever tried this before, but as a huge Andrew Dice Clay fan my entire life, I do it to this day still, and Kelsey hates it as everything I do, but I've always tried to do the like...
Oh, the wrap your arm around your head? Yeah.
My arms aren't long enough, though, so sometimes I can do it, but it's like...
Do you guys remember in like, I want to say like 2001, 2002, Jay became infatuated with Andrew Dice Clay and basically turned into him.
I love him. I love Andrew Dice
That
Clay.
was
Just
the
walking around
Together
going,
Best era, Jay.
It was better than when he loved Dane Cook and turned into him, which was way worse.
I don't think I was
The
very
leather
into Dane
vest
Cook
and the
in
cut-off
that
gloves, walking around high school with a toothpick.
Yeah, the cutoff gloves and the toothpick really made it.
Andrew Dice Clay is like the coolest. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Andrew Dice Jay. Man, I love the Dice, man. Don't get me wrong.
And I want to say that he recently developed like Bell's palsy, but he's still like producing content and posting videos all the time with like his face half frozen.
Former
That's a
star of
bummer.
Johnny's Bananas.
Yes.
I was about to bring that up.
He's always been great. Also,
Every-
gotta love a good studded jacket.
As you guys said, I want to do so much Dice Clay impersonation stuff, but it will all pop the mic, so I'm doing everything in my power to avoid
you can't
it.
do the O's too much.
Not even remotely funny. Fuck you, ball.
How do you not
Really?
like Andrew Dice Clay?
I just like to be a contrarian.
That
Well, it's better than that time in high school when Ferg just really adapted the style of Rodney Dangerfield. We were like, all right, dude, I get it.
Oh, even in school I get no respect.
The lunch lady doesn't give him tater tots. Oh, hey, oh. Which then turned into his obsession with Dollar Bill from Nashua, New Hampshire.
This is the second time dollar bill's been brought up on this show.
did we at least explain? I don't even remember what episode we
did,
talked about
yeah.
Dollar Bill. We explained who he is.
is.
So if
Yeah, he
if
lives
you're
large in our hearts, guys.
if you're a frequent listener, then you already know the legend of Dollar Bill. If you're not, you're gonna have to go back in the archives, and I can't even remember what episode to direct you to. But
I don't remember.
It's
Do you
definitely
think he's on Cameo?
One of the three.
no,
I think he's dead.
he's probably
not
not,
dead.
either.
He's not dead. I've looked into it, but his store got like foreclosed.
I will say
I
if
remember my
Dollar.
parents went there the last day, and he was apparently pretty bummed out about it. I'm glad I wasn't there. But do you think we can
I don't
reach out to
wanna
him
ever see
and
that
get him
man
to do like
bummed out.
an ad for us?
He's still wearing like the umbrella hat, but all the dollar bills are gone because he needed
But
them.
now it's pennies.
Do you think of the last day he was like trying up his tears with those dollar bills?
It's raining, and it's like,
Oh.
well, at least I'm dry.
And then
Sorry.
the hat breaks.
Our apologies to Dollar Bill if you're alive and listening and know how to
love
use the
Dollar
internet.
Dollar bill, please do the
Can we get
intros.
him and Al Caprillion on the same episode?
Yeah, if we
Oh
really
my
want to
God.
regionalize this, our episodes as
100.
much as possible.
That would be the best episode 100. That's way better than Cavemen.
I can't believe how we. I don't know how we're gonna bring up Dollar Bill and Al Caprillion when we're talking about cavemen for episode 100. But
Won't
anyways,
that happen?
to get back into this episode, Todd Hunter is he's going over his papers and he sees Rimmer has listed 247 complaints on Lister, including one case of mutiny, which basically sounded like he was messing with Lister's guitar, and as Lister jumped out of bed to like stop him, he like stepped on his foot by accident.
Not to like double up on the weeks as far as office references go, but this is very Jim and Dwight.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
If Jim was like a lot dumber, you know, as far as his antics go.
Yeah, much goofier
I don't
character.
think it's Jim and Dwight, and because Jim was like you said, it's dumber. What's his he's not
Jim and
trying
Andy?
to he's not trying to prank him. They just don't get along. They have different personalities, and one's obnoxious. I almost compare him to like a British version of Booger from Revenge of the Nerds. Like
He is a very British booger.
Who's Booger?
Or as they call as they call them bogies.
Well done.
Bogey.
Hotel Coral Essex.
Yeah. And Lister explains he's not an insubordinate man by nature, and he tries to respect Rimmer, but it's not easy because he's such a smeghead. And by the way, all this is while he's like eating like a personal sized pie. I think like it looked like this like a table talk pie or something. I couldn't tell what he's eating, but it was
I
in,
thought it was a
table pies.
burger.
it was in like he had like a pie tray though, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was a meat pie, like a mince meat. That seems
Could've
very
been.
British.
I'm just gonna say space.
That's what
food.
I thought it was.
I thought it was a burger.
Maybe he was eating. Why aren't
Who's
they all just
burger?
eating freeze dried ice cream? Isn't that all you eat when you're on spaceships? Is that freeze dried ice cream?
The pop ones.
From
No,
the
and
Museum of
no, no,
Science.
no,
From
no.
Science Museum,
Yeah.
You're thinking
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
the
you're
the
thinking
little
of the
dots.
actual. No, you're thinking of like Dippin'
No.
Dots, like the actual ice cream.
That's from the future. That's not from space.
No,
Difference.
yeah, astronaut ice cream was like it was it was like a block. You don't remember this? Like at the Museum of Science, you'd get it, and it was just
gross.
like it's
It
so
was like
gross.
styrofoam.
But as a kid, you thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and it was it just like disintegrated in your mouth.
Gross, and everyone pretended to love it, but nobody did.
but nobody
It was like
you made someone spend all that money.
It's like a
your
flavored.
parents.
It's like a flavored dry sponge.
See, I don't really remember that. I remember the Dippin' Dots that were supposed to be the astronaut.
No, that was ice cream of the future.
Yeah, that was like future or space. I think they called it space ice cream because they meant future versus ice cream from space, which was the styrofoam ice cream. You get that next to the constellation Urine.
We'll take that one offline. If I can find some of the astronaut ice cream, I'll send it your way.
Yeah, it was bad. It came in like a very tinfoily, like magnetic.
Like an MRE.
It was like an MRE, yeah.
Yeah.
But nobody's ready to eat it.
But by the way, this whole smeghead like insult, is this like popular terminology? Like the show is by the way, the show is takes place in England. In space, but it's an English comedy. I don't know if we got really into that, but is that maybe like a insult there or terminology more used in those parts?
They just invented it for the show.
Yeah, they invented it.
Yeah.
Like
It's
Grant and
a
Naylor.
space insult. Like,
All right, I wasn't sure.
Again, we don't like to tip our hats too much or whatever. We do like to talk about this sort of stuff. So I can't help saying that I just love this show, and it's been a part of my lexicon for a huge part of my life. And to this day, we still quote everything about it pretty constantly, including some things from this episode. But one of the things I always laugh about and we joke about that someday when we're rich, one of the most expensive fridges you can buy for your house is a company called Smeg. They're basically made to look like the 1950s fridges, like the really cool like Art Deco circular, but they have all the modern features in them, right? So you can get like, sort of best of both worlds, but they're like
in my head it's turquoise. Is it turquoise? I just assume it's turquoise.
Yeah, you can get turquoise. And you
I
can
bet
get like bright red. And we've always joked about like we want one, but we also really want one just because it's the fucking Smeg fridge and it's so funny.
my next question is gonna be: did you buy it from that weird like store that's
Susie
next
goes.
to Bob's Discount Furniture?
Sozio, it burnt down 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's right. I
Yeah.
forgot.
And the other one closed too.
The other one in Somerville closed too. Yeah. I drove by the one in in Revere when it was on fire.
Oh.
It was one of the Red Invasion. We were doing those reunion shows. We did a couple practices up in the North Shore somewhere. We were like, why is there all this traffic? We're in traffic on Route 1 forever. And then we were like, oh, Sozio is just like burning down and this entire area is on fire.
I mean,
Kind of a
no
bummer.
proof, but from what I hear, that was all an inside job. That guy just retired and had a huge insurance.
I wouldn't be shocked by that.
I would assume so. It's an inventory of a lot of expensive stuff and you're old and you're like, I'm out.
And then that like smeghead insult is only kind of like further gone by. There's like Superior going, but Rimmer, you are a smeghead. And that's when he like loses it. He's like yelling at him as he like walks off, which I'm surprised is insulted as he was for someone who like respects ranking so much, for him to like flip out on his Superior like that. But that one really just tipped him off.
We haven't mentioned either that you see a couple times in the scene is Rimmer's very special salute.
Oh yeah, but
Oh yeah, it's like half a Zig Heil too. Like
Yeah, it's like half a Sig Heil.
I wanted to
It's
do it,
very
shot myself in the
floppy.
face, and knocked my hat off. So that was terrible. Don't try to do things in like the mirror of your camera. It's
In the
that
mirror of your heart.
But so from at this point, we cut to our next scene, and they're having a funeral on the ship for one of their fallen crew members, George McIntyre, and the captain, Todd Hunter, and a handful of other members are all there. Captain says like a few kind words about him and how much he'll be missed. He then goes to commend his ashes to the stars he loves so much, he said, and he gets like this metal canister and goes to kind of like stick it in this. It's a system that would basically shoot the canister out into space, and kind of reminded me of like when you go to the drive-thru at the bank
Yeah.
and you get that tube that you put your money
Pneumatic
in.
tube.
Yeah, but I did also want to point out there were points during this like eulogy thing where, because I assumed it was like shot in front of a studio audience, there was a couple points where there was like a chuckle during the only serious
I
scene
noticed
in this
that in
like
the
whole
beginning
show.
too. Yeah.
There's a couple points where you just hear like someone chuckling, and I'm like, it's a funeral, and they're not even playing any comedy yet.
I like to think that that's somebody like I've done this before, and I think that a few of us are guilty of this. I'm
Got
looking at
drunk
the
and went
person who-
somewhere.
What?
Got drunk before you showed up somewhere.
I mean, there's that too, but also like when you know something funny is gonna happen, sometimes you get the giggles before.
You're like anticipating it, yeah.
Well, what I was
Yeah.
thinking too, because I noticed it in the opening scene too, when nothing was happening, people were just chuckling in the background. And I bet you anything it was from like a previous blooper that you didn't see, obviously, and it was funny, and then they had to reset, and people were still laughing
Oh
about
yeah,
it.
it could be something like
That's
that
a good
too.
call,
Yeah.
Good call, man.
And then
I didn't
once
think of that. We like to think that shows just go through in one take, but I'm sure there's like 50 takes. and
Oh,
the
yeah, I'm
shows
sure
must
that
get
happens a lot.
tiring.
We can't even talk about a show in one take.
Yeah.
Right, imagine a no edit, one fell swoop, couldn't do it.
So then after they shoot that, his ashes out into space, they go to play music that he specifically requested for his funeral. And Joe, I don't know if you recall, but when we were Utes, this was the same song you requested if you were to die
Because
to
of
be
the show.
played. And I was
Yeah.
going to ask, was this why?
Yeah, because I thought this joke was so funny when I was a kid. I've been saying it all this time.
'Cause this is
I think that's the funniest thing in the world.
This is like I don't know if it was elementary school or like early middle school when you would say this. So again, it's weird
it's
to me
kinda-
that there's a show that was like such a big part of all your lives, and I've known you guys the entirety of my lives, and I didn't know this show existed at all until very recently when we started doing our show.
Well, apparently we
definitely
all
talked
watched
about
it.
it.
and
Oh, you didn't even know it existed?
No idea.
Oh wow.
No idea.
Okay, yeah.
I stole this back in the day, young ones. Pull up your seats here. But back in the day, Netflix came through the mail, and I remember I took the first season of Red Dwarfs DVDs from Netflix back before Netflix. You know, like I said, when they came through the mail.
I think I accidentally stole a disc of Bubba Hotep, which I've actually still never seen.
You've never seen it?
No,
That
I rented it
movie-
and never returned it.
I've seen that movie a couple times actually. It is way too long. It's not a bad movie, but it lasts like 45 minutes longer than it should. It just
I'll
kept
give you that,
fucking going. I was like, oh my god, just end.
Oh, like
already.
every Judd Apatow movie?
No, I don't feel like that about Judd Apatow really.
I love Judd Apatow movies, but they all have like a 30-minute scene that could easily get cut out. But we can move on from that. And just to go back
Also,
to
Gordo's thing about stealing the DVDs, when I worked at that company Gazelle years ago, I think I mentioned this in an episode before too. It was like a company you just sold all your old shit back to. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want these DVDs, resell them for me. I don't want this computer, resell it for me. Stuff would come in all the time that they would deem had no value and would just sell you as an employee for $1. And one day, at that point, it was the 8 seasons of Red Dwarf came in, full DVD box set, completely sealed.
Lucky.
And I pulled it out of a box and was like, I'm going to scan this and see how much they want for it. Because you can pay for stuff too if it was like of value. And it came up as like the 00 thing. And I was like, this is only $1. And I was so fucking happy. So I have all 8 seasons.
I
of
like
it.
that methodology though. We as a company deem this worth nothing. Give us $1. Like,
Yeah, give us $1 or toss it in the recycling bin.
So I
That's pretty
assume
much-
that you said the first 8 seasons, so that would be the entire run when it was still on BBC.
Yep. Yeah, it was like a BBC
OG
box
run.
set. So it was like the
Got
first run of the show.
Are there
Oh,
any
by the
kind
way-
of special features on a DVD like that, or is it too old for that kind of stuff?
No, there still was. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff. I'll have to grab it. It's at my parents' house right now. I brought it over to my parents because my dad's the one who showed me this show. So at one point I let them borrow it when they were packing up to move because they had something to watch because I think they were like disconnecting cable and everything. And then that was like 7 years ago and it's still in a box somewhere. And I have to like, every time I'm there, I dig through like 2 boxes at a time trying to find it. Include my red green box sets there too for the same reason.
All the reds are there.
All the reds are there. Yeah.
I might buy this on Blu-ray if I can find it because it's not really on any streaming sites that I already pay for, so I can justify spending money.
Yeah. I think it's only streaming for free. Like if you have to get, I think BritBox is the one.
Yeah, but you don't have to pay for that.
You do. Yeah. But I also am wondering if it's worth getting because there's enough stuff that might be worth it.
I didn't even know that existed until we did this show.
BritBox?
Yeah.
They play commercials for it sometimes, but I don't know what else would be on it. I'm hoping, like, I would imagine, like, all the BBC stuff.
They have
Blackadder,
all of
Monty
Doctor
Python.
Who.
I'm sure all of Doctor Who's on there. All 97 seasons of Doctor Who.
Well, to go back a tad, the song that's playing at this funeral is the "See You Later, Alligator" song. For those of you familiar with that song, but yeah, that's kind of the end of that funeral. And as we see these
Sing
ashes,
it.
I don't
Sing
know,
the song.
just the
You
"See
sang
You
last week,
Later,
Jay. Yes, I
Alligator."
did.
Was it? No, it wasn't last. Was it last
Sing
week?
it.
Couple weeks.
2 weeks ago.
See
No,
you
it's
later,
good.
alligator, in a wild crocodile. I don't know
There it
any
is.
other words to that song.
Good enough.
But as the ashes are shooting into space, we kind of cut into the room that Rimmer and Lister stay in. And Lister's looking out of the window.
And there goes George.
Were
Yeah.
they making a play on the word "by George"? Because they said it twice.
I
Oh,
don't know.
didn't pick up on that. I don't
Because
know.
he said that when they send the ashes out, they say "by George," and then when they cut into the room, Lister says it too.
I'm not sure.
George.
I'm not sure. That's a good, yeah.
Could be. I also want to point out that when we see their room for the first time, there was a screen that was like telecasting the eulogy like to all the rooms apparently. And the monitor that they have in their room looks exactly like a modern day flat screen television that would be mounted on a wall.
Yeah, they
Which is-
nailed it. Yeah.
Which was crazy because it was 1988, and it's just like this is probably what the future is going to look like. And this is one of the few times that they nailed what the future looked like was their assumption of what television would be.
Except we're not in space.
Yeah, we're not in space
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Well, we can all join the Space Force, though.
I don't want to
Yes.
fly in his dick ship.
I will say,
The
Jay, though,
Amazon
you raise a
dick
good
ship.
point. And this references back to one of the characters from this show who we'll get to later to talk about when we play like the Where Do You Know Him From game. But do you guys notice that we watch movies when we were kids? This is so rare that they get it right with one screen, because in movies it was always like 12 mini TVs put together.
Well,
It
that's
was a
like,
wall
yes.
of little TVs with borders. Like, who thought that would be
Well,
the way it went?
That was them. That was like CG versus not CG, right? So if you needed a big screen back then, they didn't really exist, so you had to put a bunch of small TVs together. So if
Right,
that's what
that's
you're
real
doing,
life.
that's what you get. But in this instance, they definitely used some sort of CG to just project it on the wall instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they actually just use the technology. Because, I mean, even then, too, like, I remember, like, when we were kids, somebody would be like, I rented a big screen TV from Rent-A-Center for the Super Bowl or whatever. And you were like, there's one angle you can sit at to actually see this thing where, like, you can actually
Yeah.
tell what's going on, because the technology was just so bad. Like, the lighting made it weird.
So now Rimmer's quick to turn this monitor off, by the way, because he's studying for this exam, and you can see he has notes written all over his arm, which he insists are not cheating. It's just to aid his memory. And Lister tells him, why don't you just turn your body in and have them mark that?
That
That
was
line
funny.
made me laugh.
What movie am I thinking of where they do this? He forgets himself. Memento?
Yes,
Memento,
Memento,
yeah.
yeah.
He's like Mementoing his body.
Another
Yeah.
Joe Pantoliano movie.
That's true. Joey Pants.
Yeah,
Memento,
so
the fresh maker.
yeah, that's it. And then Rimmer goes on to explain that the hardships for somebody like him to become an officer. He said he didn't have the right education, the right background, or the right parents. And Lister says, "Which parents did you have?"
No, whose parents did you have?
It was my
whose
parents.
He's the wrong ones. He goes on to explain that unlike Lister, he has some ambition. He isn't content with just being the lowest ranked person on the ship. And Lister said that the mice are actually ranked lower, and he did like this impression of one. And to me, my thing with that was, I think that Lister's character is meant to be an annoyance to Rimmer, but you're supposed to like him. And in this particular instance, when he did the mouse impression, he was annoying to me. And I thought, like, there was just a couple points where he goes just a little too far. Like, he's
I think
supposed to...
that's I agree. I think you are supposed to like him, but I think you're also supposed to relate to understanding why he's super annoying. Like, I think they're trying to do both, maybe.
Yeah, because I thought he like teetered that line. Like, you get why Rimmer hates him, but you're supposed to you're supposed to identify with Lister. Like, that's the guy you're supposed to be
See,
identifying
with him, I mean, I watched the show, but he don't really only acts up like that when they're together. Like, when he's alone,
Yeah.
you can kind of, like, he has dreams, he talks about them, he wants,
Yeah.
you know.
And then he does that in this episode too.
So it's
yeah,
like,
I think he's just laying it on thick because it's the pilot.
yeah.
Yeah, and they're still finding their characters probably too a little bit at this point.
Yeah, because once
Yeah.
you go past, I mean, I've seen this show myself. Because once you go further and further into the series, you know, it eases up and they kind of hit their stride as far as their
Right,
characters are concerned.
Now, to go back to what Ferg said, you know, Lister actually informs him right there that he has a 5-year plan and he wants to do like 2 more trips on this ship. I don't know how long these trips are for them, and he's like saving up all his pay. He hasn't touched any of his money that he's made on these trips like since he started. And he wants to buy like a little farm in Fiji and get sheep and a cow and breed horses. And then there was a little joke there, like, you're going to breed horses.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I was gonna say this is the kind of thing that comes up a lot with him, and like he can't not say it in his Ringo accent. And horses. It's like just like he can't not hear it without doing the
And
Liverpudlian.
same thing with Fiji. He's
Yeah,
like, in
Fiji."
It's like
Chansky.
it's like as close to being Scottish without being Scottish as you can
I
get.
thought
Very
he
nice.
was
Smeghead.
Scottish.
That's like the Liverpool accent, though. Like, it's
There are for sure a few times where I had to go back because like I'm taking notes and I just don't know what he's saying. It's of no fault of his, you know. I'm sure like, you know, a Boston accent laid thick enough to someone is tough at times too. And then Rimmer is kind of quick to like, he's trying to like kind of just crush his dreams, really. That's all he's doing. And he's mentioning that Fiji recently had like a volcanic eruption. It's sitting like 3 feet below sea level. And he's going to have to put the sheep on stilts. And you know what it reminded me of? And Ferg, I know you'll appreciate it, but in Cool Runnings, when he wanted to move into Buckingham Palace, it was just like his dream. He used to carry this photo of Buckingham Palace. That was his goal, was to like live in this castle. It's like, what, are you going to marry the queen?
Oh, so I can't believe it's the first time
You
Cool
better.
Runnings has come up. For all the Mighty Ducks references, it's crazy that this is how long it's taken for Cool Runnings.
Yeah,
Winka, you dead man.
it was the first thing I
yeah,
thought of when
man.
that scene played out. It was like it's the same kind of scene. Like you have the dreamer, and then the other guy just has to come in and crush it and ruin it for him for no reason. You're like, just let a man have his dreams.
Well, I think this also kind of sets up too that Lister
You ruined
isn't.
him for me.
Well, Lister isn't annoying. Well, it kind of shows a different dynamic because Lister isn't annoying Rimmer just to annoy him. Rimmer is just as annoying to Lister as Lister is to him.
Yeah, for sure. There is a little bit more back. They're polar
Yeah, he's
opposites,
kind of a
but
dick
yeah.
to Lister. Like, wow, I don't.
Oh, he definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know why. Like, which one came first, right? I imagine it's
Right.
Lister being annoying, but
And I think it's probably just a matter of they're just oil and water. They're just
He's
they're,
at
they're
least
two different.
natured. Like he even like when he's about to take his test, he like wishes him luck and shit. Where
Yeah.
you can't say anything nice to him the
Right.
other way. Like
Because
There's
yeah,
a sweet
because
moment when he actually does wish him luck because he means it. He's not like he breaks for a second and actually does care.
yeah, and so Rimmer tells him that he has like the brain of a cheese sandwich, and he does this very strange impression of him like swimming, and he's doing like a mouse. It was like I didn't know what that was supposed to be.
Cheese sandwich.
a cheese sandwich
I
swimming
don't.
in Fiji.
I guess
what,
like I
what do
don't
your
know.
cheese sandwiches do?
You know what? It's funny because I actually watched back a video of me doing an impersonation of a cheese sandwich, and it sucks. So I guess I can't do any better than Rimmer did there. So
All I could think of is all the impersonation you could ever do to be any sort of sentient, like non-sentient food is just Robin Williams in.
I
Mrs.
can do an impression of a hot
Doubtfire.
dog.
Yeah. It's the only thing that works.
great visual for a podcast, guys. But I actually thought in that moment too, like at this point I don't know the characters that well, but it felt out of character for Rimmer to do that. Like he was being a little too animated for someone who's always playing so straight and like uptight. For him to like do that just didn't fit. But I don't know these characters enough at this point. But in my early introduction, it seemed weird for him to act that way.
I think he's very high strung at that point because of the test.
Yeah,
I think-
he's definitely stressed out.
He has like a stress breaking point, so maybe he's acting a little different than usual.
So then, like, we see like this head just appear on the screen. We later find out that the head's name is Holly, but yeah, it's just like a black screen with just a floating head. And I would assume he's like the brains of the ship, right? He's
just
like the
AI
intelligence in the
system.
ship. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
he steers it, courses it, everything.
Yeah, so he tells everyone, he pops up on the screen and tells everyone to welcome back George McIntyre reception. It's going to take place like in a little bit, and George would like to invite everybody, including those who didn't make it to his funeral. So you see the two of them like put their jackets on and head out, and at this point I'm a little confused, but it's a sci-fi show, so I'm not thinking too much ahead. And now we're in this like cafeteria like setting, and I don't know, there's like maybe 20-ish people sitting there, and they're just talking and eating, and we see a guy who, again, I'm looking up his names, but I don't know if they were important characters, but his name was like Peterson. He walks by Rimmer and like glares over it, like all the words written all over his arm, and he kind of like makes a weird look, and he sits at a table with Listener and a couple other guys. And I have to point this out. Did you guys notice how fucking hairy this guy's arms are? They were literally the hairiest arms I've ever seen in my life. In my
I'm with
life.
you.
No,
He's
I
got
missed
like
it.
classic old sailor tattoo arms where like he just has tattoos like right here and like right there, you know what I mean? But he's so hairy that you can just sort of faintly see that they're there. And I think because he has the tattoos, it like it makes you realize his arms are that hairy.
Right. And for those of you listening, right here and right there are his forearm. That's what Joe is pointing to when he's saying right here and right there. But yeah, so
It's a visual format.
yeah, so he goes and sits down at the table with the other guys, and they do this like little, Lister does this like prank on him. It's like the intelligence test. So I had never seen this before, and I bet this is like a common thing, but it got me because I never saw it. Lister grabs a coin and he like, sticks it to his forehead until it sticks on him. And he says the way to test your intelligence is to stick the coin to your forehead and then slap the back of your head. And the longer it takes until it falls, the amount of slaps it takes, it proves how intelligent you are. The longer it takes, the more intelligent you are. So then he grabs the coin after it falls, goes to put it on Peterson's head, and he's holding it to his head. He's like, all right, do you feel it? Do you feel it? He's like, yep. And then right as he goes to remove his hand, he takes the coin with him. So now Peterson's sitting there thinking the coin is stuck to his forehead, but in fact, there's nothing there. So now he just starts slapping the back of his own head, waiting for this coin to fall that isn't there anymore, which I thought was a pretty good gag. I had never seen that prank done.
No,
It's
neither
funny.
have I.
I was gonna tell you that's a really old joke, and then I realized it's a really old joke from this show.
Yeah, this is from 1988.
This joke's like 30 years old.
Yeah. And then eventually everyone in like this whole dining area quiets down because the captain stands to say a few words. He says it's a day for both sadness and joy. Sadness because George has passed away, but joy because he's back as a hologram. And he tells everyone like who may not have traveled with the hologram before that they kind of look and sound exactly the same and they have all the same memories, but they just can't touch anything. Like they're a hologram, so they can't like physically interact, but everything visually and spiritually about the person is the same. And then he turns the attention to George, who is the person whose funeral we witnessed earlier. And he has an H just like stuck to his forehead, like a metal H, which I guess is to signify that he is a hologram.
Yes, that's how they signify it.
And he starts thanking everyone for the marvelous funeral because he just saw the video. And he additionally thanks the captain for the beautiful eulogy and jokes about how he doesn't know why he didn't use the one he had wrote for him, though. And that got like a little laugh from everybody. And this is when we also find out that a ship can only have one hologram at a time. So he's like, if someone dies, I'll kill you. Because there's a competition for who gets to be the hologram.
I think the competition, too, it's the highest ranking person who dies gets to
Oh,
keep
is that
it
how that
because
works?
Yeah, because they say that. He's like, if anybody with a higher rank than me dies, I'll kill you.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense.
Well, I guess
Think
that's
about
the fair way to decide, right?
Right, yeah, like if the captain dies, you want the captain more than anybody, right?
Right.
Also, speaking of the captain, does anybody recognize the captain from this?
I'm not
He's-
sure.
Don't know.
Only the cat's the only person I recognize.
And I'm sorry
the cat,
because
we're going to talk about where he's from.
we
for
usually
sure.
we usually do this throughout the episode, and I'm sorry because we have met a few characters at this point, but I'll say I don't know any of these people from other work they've done, so I apologize.
Well, I will say Lister and Rimmer aren't in a ton of things that a lot of people probably in America have seen. Rimmer is in the Tomb Raider movies, which I saw
Okay.
the first one, but I haven't. It's just not my thing really. But the captain, who's like kind of a character actor-y guy who you'd recognize a bunch. First of all, his name is Mcdonald, which I just think is a great name. That's an amazing name. But he's one of the main goons in Batman '89.
Okay,
He's like the guy in the helicopter with the machine gun where they go to the
The one with the long hair and the hat. That's like
he's
Joker's
he's
number
got the
2?
hat. He's the one who paints the statue to look like the Joker
Oh,
in
get
the
the hell out of here. That's funny.
modern art scene.
Oh.
And he's also in
I
Death
like
Wish
that.
3, which is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. He's a detective in that. So he's in a bunch of stuff. He's in Superman
Death
4,
Wish and
the real bad
Batman 81.
Superman.
oh, okay. So that captain, he stands up for like a toast, and everyone stands with him, and they go to cut a cake, but. Did you guys? It's like the saddest cake I've ever seen in my life. It was like a gray cross, like that was the cake they were about to eat.
Yeah, it's just a crucifix. So it's kind
It was just an odd choice for a cake.
It's his funeral cake.
Yeah, it's his funeral
No,
cake.
it's his-
they just
it's his-
recycled it.
It's his I'm back cake.
I guess
Well,
it doesn't
that's
matter for him. He
because-
can't eat it, right?
That's also true, yeah.
As a
But,
hologram,
I
it
mean-
doesn't really matter for him.
And then towards the end of the scene, we also find out warning from the captain because a non-human life form was detected on the ship where Lister is quick to yell out that he thinks it's Rimmer. And that was fun. It's just a fun joke you expect. From there, it cuts to Lister and Rimmer, who are back in their room. Rimmer is studying his arms and legs, which are now just covered in notes. It's funny because you mentioned, Memento. It does look a lot like that at this point. And he's starting to have like a nervous breakdown, essentially, because Lister's asleep and he's trying to do his studying and he's talking to himself. He's completely overwhelmed by everything going on. He doesn't understand the work that, this test is on, and he's just talking to himself. He's just kind of breaking down. And then when Lister starts to wake up, he composes himself because he doesn't want to be seen that way. And he makes it look like he's just recapping and finalizing, going through his notes, and then he's completely ready and everything's fine. And then they exchange a few words with each other once he wakes up, and until you hear someone over the PA announce that it's time for everyone taking the exam to report over. And then
I think it's
this,
Holly, right?
yeah, it's probably Holly. I don't think you see his face at that point, but you just hear it. But yeah, most likely it would be Holly either way, unless someone who works in the ship. I don't know. But you guys referenced it earlier. This is like Lister wishes him good luck in a very non-sarcastic, genuine way.
It's
and
earnest.
Yeah, and Rimmer just kind of replies in this like dickish, overconfident way, and says that he has everything under control.
Ernest goes to space.
Yeah, and he walks
With
he
a
walks
pep.
out. He walks out, but he heads like to the right, and then you see him
I love
on camera.
that joke.
And Ferg, literally in my notes, I wrote, Ferg, did this make you laugh? Because it reminded me of the
I'm in the
Munster
closet.
scene. Yeah, it's the Munster scene where the truant officer walks into the closet and then goes, oops, I ran in the closet, and runs out of the room. It was the same gag. So I knew that you would find it funny because you love that
Tommy
one so
Clicks.
much.
Which then, just like the Munsters, we find out that the cat who Rimmer's been hiding, it's his cat, is named Frankenstein.
Yeah, and maybe that's where they got this from.
That happened actually in the Addams Family, not to be a Debbie Downer.
Oh, it was the Addams Family, you're correct.
You're right.
Thanks.
You big idiots.
Womp,
Take the Debbie
womp.
off there, Downer.
Hey, why they gotta rain on our parade there?
A Frankenstein's a Frankenstein, if you ask me.
It's a monster show, Gordo. We got the point. But
What happens if you're a hologram? You die.
Yeah, now that he's alone, Lister opens up this like space in the wall. There's like a little grate that he opens, and he pulls out his cat, Frankenstein, who I assume was the non-human that was detected that they were talking about earlier. And he feeds her some milk and shows her the picture of Fiji. And in that little time where he's talking to the cat, you realize that the cat's pregnant as well.
This is another cigarette in the ear scenario, too.
Was he? Did he put a cigarette in his ear again?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice it at this point. Why is that a thing?
It's just because he's wacky, I think. He's wacky with his tobacco.
Future.
Future.
The 90s plus a bunch of years.
80s future.
Yeah. So from there we cut to the room where the exam's taking place, and the tests are being like passed out, and they're told they have 3 hours to complete it. And as soon as it begins, Rimmer looks down to start reading the first question, and immediately like on his face you can see like he doesn't know any of the answers, and he's like almost wincing in pain. Like his face, like it's such a strong reaction. He knows he's doomed.
Yep. I know that feeling.
Now, is anybody here? I know I think we all took the SATs at some point. Maybe we all didn't. I mean, this is the last major test I took. I didn't go to college. This is not like you didn't take the SATs shade. It doesn't matter. I took it. I got a terrible grade and I didn't do anything with it anyway. But has anybody had to take like a work test like this before? Because I know it's big in like civil service, right? Like if you're a firefighter or you're a cop or something and you're like advancing, you get these big sort of tests. I don't know if anybody's had that in their job before. I never have.
Take APCO tests all the time. Well,
what are they?
A couple of years. APCO tests, like
APCO.
Yeah, it's like a dispatcher course thing for my certification.
Oh,
okay.
I do monkey work. I don't have to do anything with my brains. I just have to move
I
things.
should be taking those tests for like certifications and stuff, but they scare me, so I pussyfoot around doing it and then never do. So
that's fair.
As long as they keep paying you.
One thing, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm very good at tests, so I never have to worry.
Will you take
It's
my
always-
tests for me?
That's always been my skill set too. I'm really good with like standardized tests and stuff. I think it's just a like a mind frame. I think as long as you go in confident. There's people that are far smarter than me that just can't do standardized tests.
I hate tests in general. They always scare me. I'd rather write a paper.
Yeah, I'm the
I
opposite.
agree.
Just give me some questions, I'll answer them.
No, because there's always a right or a wrong. At least, like I'm finishing my degree. Like I'd much rather have like a term paper at the end than have to have 100 questions, because there's only right and wrong. At least with a paper, you have some leeway to demonstrate.
Why? A paper can be one long wrong.
I guess.
Shades of gray, pal.
I mean,
I know what you're saying. You can bullshit a paper to almost make your point, even if it's wrong.
Or at least be
Where a
creative
test,
with it.
Test is right down the
Yeah,
middle,
there could be a
right or
point where the
wrong.
teacher at least understands where you're coming from, or there's like, it's not completely 100% wrong or right. There are, you can get points somewhere depending on your description and whatever.
exactly.
But as he looks around, everyone else is kind of filling out their papers, so no one else seems to be having the same struggles he's having. One guy even kind of like turns to him and gives a thumbs up, and he's like fully panicked at this point, and it's almost like uncomfortable to watch how much he's like having a hard time with it. And he finally goes to like roll up his sleeve to reveal some of the notes he took on his arms, and you see everything just smudged off, like he must have been perspiring too much.
He makes the best face ever when he realizes that he smudged his whole arm. It is so genuinely pained.
Yeah, like I don't know how to properly describe it, but it's like the strong.
It looks like he was in
oh,
physical
no.
pain.
Yeah.
It was weird, yeah.
But
And-
I love this whole scene from that point on, though. Like the whole reaction to the handprint and then signing his name.
Yeah, that's that. At that point, he's like, he's like, I don't have my notes. So now all this ink that's smudged onto his hand when he rolls his sleeve up, he just slaps the paper, and now there's this thick, just like handprint on the piece of paper. Signs it, stands up, salutes, passes out.
Just done. That amazing Rimmer salute too.
But yeah, so now in the next scene, we get Lister. He's kind of called to see the captain, and on his way there, he approaches this woman. Joe, you mentioned her by name earlier. What was it again?
Christine Kachansky.
Okay.
It's hard to not say it and not in his voice.
But yeah, so they talk. They
called
talk for a
Revolver.
moment. And they have a little bit of like a back and forth. You can tell he's in her and he's flirting with her a bit, but I couldn't tell if she liked him back or not. It was a little unclear to me, but she didn't seem repulsed by him.
She seems like she's playful. This seems to me that like for her it's a work flirt and for him it's something more.
Yeah.
Like they're in
Yeah.
space. You're just sort of there. It's like being in an office all day. She flirts with him because it's fun, but it'll never go anywhere. But he's built it up to something bigger.
Yeah, like he definitely likes her. She's not repulsed by him by any means, but yeah, she doesn't seem like infatuated by him. But yeah, so the whole thing was like him asking, where the captain's office is, and she says it's that right over there where it's clearly labeled captain's office. So he heads there, and as he's talking to the captain, it comes up right away, and he goes, "Hey, where's the cat?" And he's like, "What cat?" And he's like, "Where's the cat?" He's like, "Not only are you stupid enough to bring a cat and compromise everybody because it's like
Not a quarantined animal.
yeah, it was unquarantined." He's like, "But you were dumb enough to take a photo of yourself with it and send it to our lab to process."
It's just so funny because that's the equivalence of like calling out of work and then taking selfies somewhere and then finding it on social media.
Yes, which people do all the time. Yeah,
That's
people
all the time.
people
now,
get
yeah.
fired for that like on the regular now. And
Or
then he's like,
look how many people got arrested or fired rather from their jobs for like, this is not a political comment, but like the Capitol stuff, right? People were just like taking selfies
Yeah.
or whatever, and whether I'm not saying aside or whatever, people were like, "Oh, you were away from work doing what? Okay, you're fired now because we're getting heat for it, right?" Because people now make a document of whatever they're doing for good or bad.
Yeah.
yeah, it's I think the more common example is when people like skip work to go to a sporting event and then they're seen
they're
on
caught on
television.
TV.
Yeah.
Like Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I was gonna say.
Just
Yeah.
the home
No
run.
batter, no batter, no batter, no batter, no batter.
But yeah, so the captain asks him again. He's like, "I'm going to ask you again," now holding up the photo of him with the cat. He's like, "Where is the cat?" And Lister's kind of sticking to his guns. He's not going to tell him where it is.
Back.
And, he's telling them, like, again, he's not quarantined. He wasn't, depending on where it goes, like, it can nibble on the wires somewhere and, like, send the ship flying backwards at any time. Like, there's just too much risk having an animal in there. And then Lister asks, hypothetically, if I did happen to have a cat, like, what would happen?
I
And
love
the
that he
cat,
asks that after the picture is shown already.
yeah, well,
He still won't
hey,
own up to
he's
it.
thinking, I respect that. And, he's told that essentially the cat's going to be cut up and like tested on. So they're going to kill the cat immediately. And like,
you
just
gotta put it back together.
Yeah, that
yeah,
was my favorite line. Well, are you gonna put it back together afterwards?
That was very Homer Simpson.
What happens
It's
to
"We have to cut your arm,
Frankenstein?"
Officer Simpson. Will it grow back?
but yeah. So Lister, he can't do it. He explains his plan for Fiji to the captain, and the cat is part of that plan to him. So the captain explains he pretty much has two options. He either turns in the cat or he goes into stasis for 18 months and he has to submit all his wages. And he decides.
I love how
he's-
loyal to this cat he is, though.
Yeah.
He's like,
I do
yeah,
too.
fuck it, I'm going. There's
Because
no
As a
doubt
cat
about
person,
it.
I'm all for this.
Yeah.
I'm a dog guy, so in my head I'll just replace it with a dog. If it was a cat, you could cut it up. I don't care. But
Jeez Louise.
no, I don't. I'm not saying that. Not for
Christ.
real. Not for real. I don't hate cats. I'm just a dog guy. There
I
was
think
that.
you hate cats.
No, did you see that documentary? Like you can't fuck with cats. People come after you.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see it, but I
I think it was just called like "Don't fuck with cats."
No, it was. It was.
Joe, have you not seen
Tiger
it?
King.
I've never heard of this.
The way Gordo let into it. Oh yeah. I didn't see it.
So it is completely off topic. It's very, very strange. It's a documentary, and I would highly recommend all of you to watch it. It had its heyday like right in the beginning of the pandemic, I think.
I do remember hearing about it. Yeah.
Oh,
I would-
Tiger King.
It
I was
it
gonna
has
say,
a
was there
lot
big
of
cat and the little cat.
it has a lot of really graphic, disgusting
cats?
animal cruelty stuff in it. So be warned because
Yeah, I'm not
it's
gonna watch
uncomfortable.
Yeah, Skip.
Yeah, that's why I didn't watch it.
It is
Big ol'
so
skip.
it is so interesting. I'm telling you guys, give it a shot. I turned my head away a couple times, and I would just tell you guys to do the same to get
This
through those
animal
parts.
cruelty, I can't do it. I'm sorry.
But it's very,
I
very
can't even
entertaining.
watch in movies when dogs get like killed, like in horror movies.
But I'll explain that to you guys at a different time because this isn't the time or place to go into it. But so now he chose the cat. So now we're seeing him like heading over to stasis, which he didn't even know exactly what that would mean for him because he asks if it's gonna hurt. So like he, regardless of whether or not it did, chose that over giving up the cat, even if it meant 18 months of pain for him.
I mean, it was the cat and its baby. He's a real hero.
Yeah.
It's true,
Yeah.
pregnant cat. And this seems to be a whole lot better than what Sylvester Stallone gets in Demolition Man.
Yeah, he's not frozen. He's like literally like stopped in time.
Yeah.
When he does come
Yeah.
out, he's just like, oh, I was asleep. What year is it? Where it's not like in Demolition Man where it's like, I was screaming for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. this is awful.
in the glass.
But before we get into that, I do want to mention that as he's like heading towards the stasis chamber, that we see Rimmer being like wheeled off in like a medical gurney, like after his like little passing out incident, and he's basically delirious still coming out of that. And he's under the impression he did good on the test. I don't think he's actually under the impression he did good, but he just needs to. It's like when he lies to Lister throughout the episode about his confidence. I think he's just following through with, no, I did a good job. I did a good job.
I love too that for Stasis, because it's like a vacation, Lister shows up in a Hawaiian shirt.
Is that, I just thought that's his general style when he's not in his work clothes.
Well, I mean, he could have showed up in his work clothes. I mean, it was a work sanctioned thing, right? But he usually is wearing like a button up shirt with a t-shirt under it, but he goes full on Hawaiian shirt. Like he goes in vacation mode
that's
for this
what
thing.
Jay's right. That's what he would wear normally, and he's being punished. So he'd be like, it's almost like they would have stripped him of his uniform.
Yeah, he's like off the
Yeah.
clock.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it makes sense too. Yeah, like you don't get the dignity of wearing your uniform.
Yeah, but like the stasis chamber, I don't know, to explain it to you guys, it was like just a little bit bigger than maybe a phone booth. And it's just kind of this chamber that you stand in and it shuts. And he didn't know if it was going to hurt, but that's when, we talk about it. He's basically just frozen in time. There was a lot of technical kind of jargon thrown in there that a lot of it escaped me because it was first in a thick British accent and being spoken very quickly. So I missed a little bit of it. But essentially, he's frozen in time. He exists, as a being, but as far as he's concerned, like he won't know anything happened. He's just going to flash right out of it, which isn't even the worst punishment, right? Like you're here for 18 months.
That's pretty chill, yeah.
You're not going to know you were in there for 18 months. It's going to feel like a second. You're not going to
Not
age.
like you're in the brig or anything. Like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it would be like the brig and no pay would be punishment.
Yeah. Like you don't age or anything either. Like, so that's not bad.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
they don't pay.
I mean, you get to skip time and the cat doesn't get died. It's almost like he's rewarded. The only thing he
Yeah.
lost is his pay, which he doesn't even realize because he's out of time. Like,
Right. So he goes in
Whatever's
there.
in his bank account, which technically, if it was in a bank account, would be accruing interest while he
Yeah,
was
so he's
in
gonna make he's gonna make
stasis.
some money. Not a ton over 18 months, but still. But yeah, so the door shuts and you just kind of see his head through the window and he like gives like a little wave and we cut to this exterior shot again, like in the intro of the ship going by, and it cuts right back to him, like right where we left off, and it looks like just a second has passed because, for him that's what it felt like. And he comes out and he's being spoken to by Holly, the floating head AI in the ship. And he's walking around and he can't find anybody. He's all alone. And he's like, where is everyone? And that's when he finds out that in his time in there, everyone had died. That there was an issue with one of the plates wasn't repaired properly and it let elements get in that like killed everybody on site basically.
Radioactive elements.
radiation, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
they get radiation poisoning from a loose drive plate.
And as he's walking by, you see these like little lumps of, it almost looks like lumps of cocaine all over desks and stuff. And he's like, keeps like dipping his finger in them and like licking them as he's walking around, which I thought, regardless of what it ends up being, is so odd that you would make that choice as a human being. Like, oh, a lump of, because it could just have been dirt or anything.
Been
and,
rat
like,
poison.
yeah, and you just keep dipping your finger in it and licking it. It's not like there was just going to be big piles of Fun Dip everywhere.
That's what I was gonna say. I was trying to say, what's the candy we were kids? You licked the stick and stuck it into. That's what he's treating it like. Do they still
Yeah,
make
exactly.
that?
Probably.
Probably.
I'm sure. I can't imagine I would like it now. At this
What the hell
age,
is that
but I did
called?
love it as a kid.
Fun
Fun
Dip.
Dip.
Fun Dip.
Fun Dip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's delicious. I had it recently.
But I like as he was walking around, and it has nothing to do with his son. He just went and bought some fun.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
I
that-
stole it from my son. All right.
Yeah.
You can't have this. I'm throwing it away.
Yeah.
Down my throat.
But there's a bit as he's walking around and doing all this because he keeps asking about everybody like one by one, like, oh, the captain. It's like everybody's dead. Dave. Lister's first name is Dave, which and he's
This
like,
is
what
one of
about
the more
this person?
famous. It's probably the most famous thing of this show too. Like,
I
this
bet it
is
was.
the
I felt like
scene.
this is probably something that is on shirts and stuff, easily findable. That was my
Yeah.
assumption. But it was like he was
Everybody's
listing
dead,
everybody.
Dave.
Everybody's
all
dead,
dead,
Dave.
Dave.
Everybody's dead, Dave. Over and over and over again. And then he sits down and he asks, like, what is this? Pointing at one of these piles. And it's, as I would have assumed at that point, that's what happened to all the crew members, is they became these piles of dust. He's like, I've been eating this? You let me keep eating them?
This is my favorite joke in the whole episode, too, is when he points out the one for Christine Kachansky, which is like the next part right there. And then you really get where Holly's going to go in the show going forward, too. He's like, well, she's not going to be very good on Fiji now unless it snows and you need something to grit the path. That's fucking joke ever. And then when he gets mad at him about it, he's like, I'm sorry, I've been alone for 3 million years. I think I've gone a bit peculiar, which is such an English expression.
That
Yeah, it's a lot of time to be lost in your thoughts, whether you're an actual human or AI. And also, I want to mention that throughout all this, we find out that it wasn't 18 months. He's actually been in there for 3 million years.
Until the radiation dies down.
I love that they picked such a ridiculous amount of time. Like, oh, it's been 50 years. It's been 100 years. No, it's been 3 million years. That's such an insane thing.
And then we find out that he's not actually alone on the ship because, as we did learn in the beginning, there can always be one hologram on the ship at a time. And this is why I'm a little confused, because we said earlier that it would
How
be
did he get
the highest...
to be the hologram? Is what
exactly, because we thought it would be the highest ranking person, but we know this person was not the highest ranking person. It's Rimmer. Rimmer becomes the hologram. So now Rimmer walks up.
It's the next most highest ranking because he would have been one tiny step above him.
He was only one tiny step above.
Well, no.
Lister.
How did the original hologram die?
George? They never said how he died.
I always got the impression that he was just activated as a hologram because he's not like, he doesn't have knowledge of the past million years. So I figured that he was just activated as I know they're not actually friends, but as his friend by the ship AI. Like,
why?
That makes the most sense, yeah.
Would be his closest person, so he's not by himself.
Because, you see Rimmer show up, and now he has the same metal H on his forehead that we had seen George have earlier in the episode.
I don't think we mentioned this when we talked about the H earlier, but again, why this show is so great, where they'll go to the hologram visuals are great, the TV on the wall is great, but then pulling up straws or just gluing a metal H to someone's forehead are so...
That would be
it
so annoying
makes it so much better.
As an actor, too. Like, that would drive me nuts to have something taped
You
to
know
my
that
phone.
fell off 100 times.
Oh, yeah.
All day long. Yeah. He would sneeze and that thing would go flying. Or like, how many times did it fall into the toilet while he was peeing? And like, then what do you do?
Peehead.
And then I like that as soon as like Rimmer shows up, he's like really quick to just blame Lister for everything. And that, had he not gone into stasis, he would have been there to help him repair the plate. And like, it was Rimmer who incorrectly repaired the plate. I don't know if I had mentioned that earlier. So essentially it's his fault that everything went down.
He killed everybody.
Which I think is an interesting dynamic, right, for that character, because he's the straight-laced particular one, like when we saw the straws at the top of the episode, but he's also terrible. He can never pass this test. He's the one who messed up and caused everyone to die. Like, as much as he's the proper one, he's a complete fuck-up himself.
Yeah, what's the term? He's got delusions of grandeur. Like, he
Yeah.
thinks he's really like smart, but he's a big fuck up too. Like,
Right. There's a
Yeah,
reason
he's
that
the
the two
biggest
of them
fuck up
are
of them all.
the same ranking at that place. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's a reason they hold the same job. But then he asks what it's like, and he says, "Death, it's like being on holiday with a bunch of Germans."
Which I don't think you guys have gone back, and I don't think anybody here, Gordo, I know, has seen it, but if anybody has watched more Faulty Towers,
nope.
the episode called The Germans is by far the most famous and funniest episode of that show. But the British will not, and rightfully so, do not give up on their mad hate of the Germans from World War II. That shit is just never going away.
Yeah.
Like, this is 1988, so you're, 43 years after World War II ended, and these actors were not alive. They have inherited hate from their parents, and everyone's still so mad at the Germans.
Yep.
And
Not mention the war.
and by the way, Faulty Tower is one of our earlier episodes, but you can find it
First
if you go
5, I
back.
think, right?
It's up
think
there.
I was
It's pretty
7.
early.
It's
Was
our
it?
second cycle of shows. I know.
Yeah,
that.
so it is
Okay,
pretty
so
early
the
on.
first 10.
So, head on over and you can check that one out. If you want to scroll down in the feed a little bit, you'll find it. But he corrects me, says, no, not what death is like. What's it like being a hologram? And that's when, we said it at the very beginning. They have this effect. He puts his hand through them. And if you pay attention, you could tell that there was an effect that was about to happen. But they did a pretty good job, especially for a sitcom in 1988, which I assume the budget wasn't that strong for. Especially for a pilot episode.
For a pilot, especially, yeah. It's also
And,
he's going through the things he thinks he knows he'll never be able to do again, and one of them is he'll never be able to interfere with a woman sexually ever again, which is the weirdest way to put that.
Yeah, because he had said that, he all his thoughts and emotions are the same, but because he can never touch anything. And that part in particular, the interfere with a woman, is that another term that might be
I don't know
said
if it's like
over there.
colloquial or British. I don't think it's sketchy, but it sounds sketchy. But I don't think it's
Right.
meant to be.
Yeah, it comes off so weird to say interfere because interfere is a negative. But
I think it's got to be like a colloquialism or just like a different, language barrier thing. There's no way, because I don't think he means that. He's such a harmless,
right, yeah,
weak character.
exactly. And then Lizard's telling him you need to look on the bright side. You're dead, but you're not like dead because he still exists in some sort of consciousness as a hologram. And he said there was plenty of people that were holograms that went on to do some great things. So Rimmer is kind of on board, and he sees maybe a little bit of a bright side there. And he says, you know what, I need to just pull myself together, but I'm going to need you to be like my hands and my touch. And he's like, I've seen the things that you touch. I refuse to do that.
So I'm looking up just to let you guys know, I'm looking up the from Anglotopia.
Okay,
British slang in the bedroom, the big list of 71 British sexual terms.
Sit tight, everyone. Gordo's going to read 71 different terms.
I was going to say, everybody's get comfy.
He can't get through the title before I fall asleep.
No, now I just lost the one that I was going to because I went up, and I'll be back. Hold on. Oh, guys, I found it. Ring piece is the anus. And apparently there is also another term, which is all fur coat, no knickers, which is a woman who looks good on the surface but has no substance.
Oh, I thought that would be a pubic reference.
I thought it was too. Yeah.
I was too.
Leave it to the British.
Yeah, they also call the anus the balloon knot.
I've
heard
heard
before.
that. All right, well let's move past that. Unless you have one more that you really want to get out.
Pick a good one, Gordo.
Go ahead, Gordo. You got one more.
Okay, all right, hold on. The clung is a very rude word for the female vagina.
Oh, like she's well clung?
Yes. Not to be used in polite or even impolite conversation.
I'm sorry, because if we're using words that are like so highly offensive, because I know we get some listeners overseas, so I apologize if anything we said is like drastically offensive.
Deal with it, you smegheads.
We're ignorant smegheads. I apologize.
Isn't that the noise they make on Law and Order? It's like clunk clunk.
CLUNGE. I'd imagine that's how you would.
That
say
you know what?
clung?
That's going to be the thing. Is not only are we saying this highly offensive term, we're probably saying it
pronouncing
wrong.
incorrectly as well. Yeah.
Well, correct us.
Not
on
we,
social media.
Gordo.
Just go to S1E1 Pod on Instagram, Twitter, anything like that.
And then
S1E1pod.com.
at Gordo for being the offensive.
Yeah,
one
find
there.
Gordo directly. We follow him on Instagram. Message him directly on his personal account.
Slide into them DMs.
The Wobton Raider.
So anyways, Rimmer then asks Lister if he's smoking in the drive room, and he's like, "Yeah, I stopped for quite a while, but I'm back on it now," which I thought was pretty funny because he had just
Good
been
joke.
frozen.
Take 3 million years off.
Yeah, he didn't smoke for 3 million years. You would have thought that at least the psychological and physical addiction would be gone. But so Rimmer goes to write a report, and I did like this because at that moment he realized he can never write a report again, which is maybe one of his funnest hobbies.
But he also has an entire AI computer around him where you think the next move would be like, Holly, take a note in my reports folder.
But I mean, like, that was the thing. Who's he going to report to?
Nobody. Yeah, he's the highest in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just programmed that way. That's just how his brain works.
But it's the best thing. It's like the funniest fate to happen to a guy like that, right? Like now you're the highest in charge and no one can ever be more in charge than you, but you're a hologram and you can't enforce any of this.
Worse than the fact that he can never touch a rose to his face or hold a child or interfere with a woman sexually. He can never write a report again.
Right in her clung, right, Gordo?
Yeah.
Yeah, right in their clung.
Burying us deeper with the clung.
Yeah, we don't know how bad that is. We just keep saying it. But I know.
Got canceled off of clung?
Yeah. I know.
Clung
Poo.
Imagine.
So that's when Lister says, I know it's wrong to speak ill of the dead, but you're still a smeghead. And you see them, like, now there's a shot of them, like, walking by and arguing. And a vent pops open as they like come off scene, and this just guy in a pink suit and bow tie pops out, and he has kind of like these like fang-like teeth, and he's almost like so yeah, I don't know. He got kind of like a Little Richard, James Brown like vibe. I don't know how you guys would better describe him, but
I think
No,
that's
that's
the
exactly
perfect
it.
combo. He does great. Denny John Jewel, star of Blade 2. He
I was gonna
does.
say this was not the last time he wore fangs.
Yeah. I remember we saw Blade 2 in the theater together, all of us, and I was like, I popped when he came on the screen because I was like, holy
Assad,
shit.
member of the Blood Pack.
Yep. But
yeah,
just the
so-
best. Wow.
yeah, he's doing a
James
lot of
Brown.
those, and yeah, because he was talking to himself for like quite a while. He's very animated, and he's like, "I'm looking nice, my shadow's looking nice. Oh yeah, this way."
He just reminds me of like the villain from an old drug PSA. Like,
He's the cat man and the scat man. Yeah.
He's like Little Richard trying to act like Dude Love, and
He does have a Dude Love vibe going on. I would love if Mick Foley was actually basing Dude Love on Cat from Red Dwarf. That would make me love him so much more.
and as this guy's running around just yelling like this way, he eventually like finds the two guys, and they're like terrified at first, and they run off immediately because the cat goes to do like almost like if you told like a young child to act like a monster. He like raises his hands and like opens his mouth, like that's like what he did to. He's like, I gotta look big, and he just
To make
raises his
myself
thumbs
look
up.
big. That's another one too.
That's
We
what
talk about like how
animals do.
we quote this show all the time. Most of the quotes are also the cat though, because we have a cat, right? So you're constantly just like whenever he does that thing where he gets big, you're like, oh, better make myself look big. Like everything he says is just so fucking funny.
Yeah,
And
and
also, not to jump ahead, but in the show, this gag gets funnier and funnier as they find better ways to make a human do what a cat would do if they were a human, and it always pays off very well. This is like a good running joke.
so I'll say this: as far as is his name just the cat? Like, does he
Yeah, just
have a
Cat.
name? Okay,
Yeah.
Cat. As we first meet Cat, I found it kind of funny, but I thought it was a little too over the top for a while. Like it was like
I
very,
feel
very
like he didn't
wild.
really get any direction on how to be this character and just kind of like figured something out. And because I agree, like that was not the best. Thinking about it, it's funny, but like watching it, it was not done well. And
It like
was
threw
just-
me off.
Yeah, it was awkward.
It's supposed to be. He's never met another human being or any other creature. He's been alone on that ship since birth.
No, he went to cat school. We find that out later.
He's
Like,
with other
yeah.
cats, yeah. Which does lead the question: why is he alone on the ship?
It was asked, and we'll get
I
into.
think
We'll,
they address it later.
yeah,
on.
he asked. We'll get into that in a moment. But because Holly tells the two that when everything had happened on the ship where everyone had died, that Frankenstein the cat and her kitten survived, and they had been breeding for 3 million years. So like much like how we evolved from ape, there would be this form of human or whatever he is evolved from cats.
Yeah.
Like the Mario Brothers movie where dinosaurs evolved to humans instead.
Yeah, but this was just one cat that was pregnant. So now there's just like 3 million years of incestuous cat play.
So I was
That's normal
going to
with
say
animals.
no.
yeah, it is
I was
normal with
going.
animals.
But
I
even
was
like
going-
that tight in line, really? Like meow meow meow, stepsister. Meow meow meow.
Hey,
So-
my little cat body's stuck under the bed. Now I'm stuck in the dryer.
The two people that hate that kind of porn so much, you sure know every
They do talk
skit.
about it a lot. Gordo's been trying to get a sentence out for 10 minutes.
I
Well,
was
if his
going to
sentence
say-
wasn't stuck under the bed, he could...
Damn.
Sorry, Gordo.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, according to IMDb, there are factual errors in this episode as it pertains to Cat. Cat is supposedly a descendant from Lister's cat 3 million years earlier. There wouldn't be enough genetic diversity in such a scenario, and the increasing levels of inbreeding would have wiped the cats out long before evolving into humanoid forms.
Okay.
What nerd wrote that?
Future.
Apparently,
Written by M. Gordon, 2020.
it doesn't say I was looking for that. This isn't accurate. 5 of 21 people found this interesting.
Can you imagine though, like a world where they're watching the show where a cat's evolved into this like Little Richard like human? It's like something's not right here. Let me check out the genetic structure of cats.
Like, that's the issue with them. It's not
Meanwhile,
the
a hologram's there.
half-human
People have been
Little
turned to
Richard.
dust.
Hold the phone, everybody. Fucking
I'm gonna
nerd.
get on IMDb right now.
Whoever wrote that can suck it. Up the clung.
Not only did it bother them, they had to write an article about it.
Well, there's another one too that's even like worse that only one of 3 people found interesting. Which basically just says, the same thing, but in a longer paragraph, but just saying that his existence is inconsistent.
Okay, why don't you add 5 people to that don't find it interesting?
But yeah, so moving on. As Kat walks into the room where they're all where Rimmer and Lister were, where they were talking to Holly, Rimmer goes to like attack him by like running up to give him like some sort of a karate chop, but Rimmer is now a hologram, so he just ran straight through him. And then
Kat just laughs at him.
Yeah, and it cuts to a little bit later on, and Lister's pouring him a bowl of milk, and he originally goes to put it on the floor, and
No,
Kat's
he pours
like,
him a bowl of Krispies.
was that what it was? Oh, I just saw like the milk part. So Krispies, what's that, like cereal?
It's just cat food, I think. Maybe that's what they call it.
Oh, all right. So, but he goes to put it on the floor, and then he's like, "Is that how you like monkeys eat? Like the people who evolved from like monkeys?" So he puts it on the table for him, and Lister wants to know if there's any more of them there. Like, so we did talk about this earlier. Like, did they all die? Like, what happened?
Well, I think you missed a great thing though. He puts it on the floor, and then he's like, "What are you? You eat like this on the floor? What's wrong with you?" But then he puts it on the table, but then he eats like a cat without his hands. He just shoves his face into it, which is the good gag there.
Yeah.
And then, Rimmer, he doesn't really care if there's any more of them or what. Like, he cuts it off before he can answer, even though, like, these are all very important questions. Because he tells him that, like, this cat's going, like, we're kicking him off the ship anyways. But Lister is quick to tell him, like, absolutely not. Like, he's coming with us back to Earth.
He's like, I still have a cat and I still have a plan.
Yeah, because Rimmer's like, all right, if this is what like a cat turned into after 3 million years, like, what do you think the people on Earth are like? Like, we shouldn't even go there. Like, you're basically just gonna be like slime over there.
I call them the primordial ooze.
Yeah. So, but Lister doesn't care. He said he still has a plan and he still has a cat. It's not Frankenstein, but it's a cat. And that's when Cat goes, Frankenstein, the Holy Mother, the Virgin Birth. He's like, I remember this from kiddie school. So, basically what had happened was like the legend of Frankenstein was, she was saved by Cloister the Stupid, and who was frozen in time and gave his life so that they could all live. So Cloister the Stupid is Lister. Like, that's just how
stupid.
Yeah, he's like, that's me. I'm Lister the Stupid.
Lister the Stupid. And then instead of Fiji, it's Fuchsial.
Yes, because but there was part of the legend is that he would return one day to take them to the Promised Land. And so basically, like, his dreams to go to Fiji have become like legend in the cat human world. So now all the more so he's inspired, like that's it. And he tells Holly, like, set the maps to send us to Fiji. It's like, the slime is coming home. And that was the close of that episode. So anything else you guys want to say about Red Dwarf as a whole? Like I said, I'm the only one who wasn't really familiar with the show at all. Nick, you also hadn't seen it. I know you guys are very into it. So, we discussed the pilot just as is, but was the pilot like far different from like where the show went immediately after? Like, anything you guys want to talk about?
Well,
Look,
the
this
pilot
show
was a lot of setup for what the show is. Like, the rest of the show is them like traveling through space. And like, one thing I hate is that the pilot doesn't have my favorite character, which is the like android Crichton.
Yeah, I mean, another one of my favorite lines that I use all the time is a Crichton line, which is another line about heaven, because the show definitely delves deep into like a sort of subversive religious thing a lot. But not to give any spoilers or anything, but like, if you want to know if you think this show is gonna get like even more wild, like, there are robots, they go back in time. At one point, JFK gets involved. Like, the show is wild, and it is so fun. And I don't want to, like, give away anything about that, because I really think it's worth seeing. The JFK story arc especially is mind-blowing, the conclusion of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the characters from the first episode, the pilot, do come back. Like I said, Kachansky comes back, and they're always still trying to get back to Earth and go to Fiji. The cat only gets funnier. It's really a really wild show. And as somebody who does not like sci-fi as a genre for the most part, I think it's super good.
Holly gets really funny too. as the show progresses too, and then he eventually becomes a girl.
Yep, Holly changes.
Because there was a falling out with
changes
the
back.
actor. Well, there was a falling out, I guess, between the actor that played the original Holly, and they, I guess he didn't want to go to rehearsals from Edinburgh, and the producers just wrote him out and wrote someone else in.
Huh.
But that's, but he gets really, really funny too.
Yeah, that Holly becomes a way bigger character in the show. Holly becomes like it becomes basically an ensemble show, right? Where it's the 4 main characters are those 4, because now that's all that's left, and they all get equal time, and they're all very well done.
And I don't want to get too into spoilers because we try to just stick to the pilot, but for something like this, thought it would be interesting because for a show that only has, I forget what I said, it was 74 episodes so far, but the show's been on since 1988. Again, we've talked in the past about how like British shows just operate different. They're very, very short series that, they kind of space them out. But for a show that's lasted that long, obviously there's some sort of allure to it. And, I will say, having watched the episode, and before we get into our green light segment, pretty simple as far like the sets themselves, even though it was on a spaceship and they looked decent for what they were. Nothing extravagant, like their use of effects was really good, but pretty simple sets, but everything worked. It worked within their genre for sure.
And I will say too, I forgot until today when we were talking about the show, but I definitely have Red Dwarf Books downstairs. Because just like any type of shows like this, right? Or James Bond or anything else, they're like, oh, let's just write a bunch of like spin-off novels because it'll keep something going in the time between the seasons. It's like I've read a few different Red Dwarf novels too, just because the tone's so funny.
Out of curiosity, you guys know, for a show that has been around for over 30 years at this point, almost 34 years. Is there a reason that there's only 70 something episodes, even with the shorter UK style of television series?
There was a huge gap between the original show because it basically ends.
Yeah, it wasn't a consistent like 30 years.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, there was like a couple of years between seasons, but it was always pretty much the same until the 8th season, and then there was like a 20-year gap.
Got it. Okay.
And only the real reason it came back is, especially in the UK, there's like an insanely loyal diehard fan base, and they essentially just saw the money they could. They're like, well, people love this show, why not bring it back? Especially with like things like Doctor Who, which we referenced, which has gone on for so many years, and they're like, well, we can wait 10 years, we can change the characters, we can do all this stuff. So
got it.
I think it was more of a case of that. And this is one of those shows too where like, again, you think like, oh, who watches this, whatever, like just type in Red Dwarf into like Etsy or something, and you're gonna find like 50 pages of people making mugs and t-shirts and patches. Like it's a really big show with just weirdly
world building
underground.
Well, to anyone from that universe, if you've discovered our episode, welcome, and thanks for giving us a listen, and we hope you stick around for future episodes and listen to some of the ones from the past. So let's get into the green light or cancel segment of our show. I'll go in the order I see you guys. Gordo, starting with you.
Green light. To peel back the curtain, this is my show. As I mentioned earlier, I stole the Netflix series of it, the Netflix DVDs, because I liked it so much. I've seen it through, I think, until the 8th season. I don't think I've seen past that, but it's funny. It's interesting. It only gets better and it only gets funnier. So green light for me.
Ferg.
Yeah, green light. I love British TV, British comedies. I love sci-fi. Great cast. Like I've watched the original 8 seasons. I watched a few of the specials. I haven't seen the newest one, which I need to check out. I've seen pictures. It's funny how much they've aged, but that's how time works. But
even as a hologram,
such a big part of my childhood. I used to watch this all the time. And unlike Perfect Strangers, it wasn't just member berries because I still enjoyed this very much. So yeah, easy green light.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I agree very much with Gordo and Ferg's points, right? A big part of my childhood, it's not just one of those shows that you were like, I loved that, and then you watch an episode and you feel bad, right? You're like, oh god, Hey Dude is terrible. Why did I rewatch that and ruin it? Like, you always rewatch Red Dwarf if it's ever on. Like I said, we reference it constantly still to this day. And also a show I loved watching. Like as a kid, I have like real good memories of watching it with my family on Tuesday nights, whatever, on PBS. So that has that emotional place too. And now when I go to my parents' house for Christmas, I'm going to have to dig through more boxes to find my box set so I can rewatch seasons 1 through 8 again. And I have seen like Ferg some of the specials. I haven't seen the newest one, so maybe that'll be a plan this weekend. So a huge green light for me.
Nick.
Smegheads.
So, like I said at the top of the show, I had always wanted to watch this show. Always heard about it, always seen it referenced. And in watching it, I was a little underwhelmed, and I think maybe I just kind of built it up too much in my head. Having said that, I don't think it was bad. It was goofy, kitschy. It seems like one of those shows that is going to do a good job of keeping you entertained, I guess. I know that's the point of a TV show, but I can see a good future for this show, and I do want to keep watching it, so it's going to be a green light for me too.
All right, well, now it's down to me, and I have a bit of a past with some of the past British shows we've done. That being said, this time I'm giving it a green light, and I don't know what it was and it's funny because I'm not a sci-fi guy either. I love Star Wars, but a lot of like sci-fi television shows just don't do it for me. It didn't have like the dryness that some of these other shows have. I don't know. A lot of the jokes resonated with me. I really enjoyed it. Will I like go immediately into watching it? I don't know for sure, but like I am more curious and open to watching it. So as far as like that general genre goes, that's a big step for me. So that's 5 for 5, guys. We gave it a perfect score.
I'm happy to hear that.
So congratulations to Red Dwarf. You pass. You go on to episode 2. So that's it. That's all the time we have this week, guys. Thank you everyone for listening. If you want to listen to more of us, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find the links to everywhere we can follow us on social media. Please spread the word, rate, review, subscribe, do everything in correspondence to all the links that we have posted on there. We very much appreciate it. We appreciate everybody who's found us recently and started listening. It's been really awesome. Again, spread the word. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best walrus.
Later, smegheads.